Whoa. Is someone gonna, fix that? Hello and welcome to another Fakemon video. Today I'm gonna be turning Slay the Spire characters into Fakemon. I'll be sticking to just the first game because I don't have Slay the Spire 2 yet, although I'm sure the new characters would make some awesome Pokemon. So with that, let's get to slaying the Spire. I'm going to be Pokemonifying the Ironclad first since I thought it would be only right to go in unlock order. When I'm doing Fakemon designs based on other series, I try to retain enough to make it recognizable as the character, but change enough that it could feasibly fit into the Pokemon world. Since there's a lot of humanoid warrior Pokemon already, I wanted to use a more animal-like starting point this time. I've always associated the Ironclad with reptiles, probably because of the shape of his helmet and his greenish skin. So some of the inspiration from this design is from dragons. He's not going to be dragon type though, he just looks like one. I feel like this really worked well with his concept and lore, since a lot of his cards in his starting relic reference fire, which Western dragons are also associated with. Ironclad is also associated with demons because of his pact with one, which he sold his soul for. As you may or may not know, depending on whether you skip event text, it's implied in the Sensory Stone event that this deal also led to him killing his village. I didn't inject any demonic imagery into this design because I was mainly focused on capturing his armored look, but I did look at Grimmsnarl and Morgrem for help with stylization. By the way, I'm just going off of Slay the Spire 1 lore for this video, which is pretty sparse, so I have no idea if any of this got retconned or expanded on in the new game. I have watched playthroughs, but Northern Lion doesn't read flavor text, so I'm pretty much lore deficient right now. Back to Ironclad, a big part of his design is his two-handed sword. I did consider having him actually hold a blade, but it looked weird with the dragon body, so I settled on giving him a tail blade. Incorporating his armor was pretty straightforward since it already looks a bit reptilian, and I tried to make it look like it was merged with his body. To fill some of the empty space on his arms, I gave him this Mark of Pain inspired design. I think a small problem I have with this design is that his body ended up being more bulky than I planned to balance out the sword tail. I used almost the exact colors from his original design, but his shiny palette is inspired by the Black Blood relic. I didn't need to do anything super crazy with the shading, but I did try to emphasize the glowing areas in his eyes and arms. Now onto the finished design. This is Farinum from Farum and Num, the Burning Blood Pokemon. Once part of a large pack, this Pokemon now travels alone. The flames within its body drive Farinum's will to battle on. Now we have the Silent. I knew going into this that I wanted to make her a snake-related Pokemon since she's already associated with snakes, and it just works well with her poison theming. Her lore didn't really play a big part in this design, but I'll still mention it for consistency. Basically, she lived in a sisterhood of presumably other huntresses and completed a rite of passage by killing a nemesis creature, which she now wears the skull of. The main feature of this design ended up being her giant scales, which is a reference to the Shiv mechanic and also the Ring of the Serpent relic. I didn't know if I wanted to keep her cloak, but I really like all the card art of her using concealed shivs, so I added it attached to the skull. I tried to shape it so that you could also read it as shed skin instead of fabric. I feel like I missed out on featuring the bandages and dagger of her original design, mainly because they took a backseat to the Shiv scales, and there's only so much surface area you can cover before it starts looking too busy. I feel like this could be fixed if she had arms, but I couldn't make it work in any of the sketches. Her shiny palette is inspired by the Wraith form and Bane cards with that dark gray and brighter green. This is Shiver, the Snake Ring Pokemon. Shiver steadily wears down its foes with venom-laced attacks. Its scales are sharp as blades and can be launched with great precision. For the defects design, I had a lot of problems. It's mainly my fault because I was designing all of these simultaneously and getting in my head about making them too similar. But ultimately, I think it was for the best because I like the end result. Defect's original concept is pretty simple. It's a malfunctioning combat robot that became sentient through some means. I do think it's interesting how you can see its relation to the other Spire robots though. My first sketches had these cables inspired by the Egoform card, but like I said, they started to look too similar to another design, so I got rid of the long cables and gave them these chunkier legs, which are admittedly inspired by their new design. Their shiny palette is based on the runic capacitor and nuclear battery relics, and I can't decide if I like it or not. Sorry if you got attached to the legs, because I decided to throw them out again, because I felt like it looked like the defect but in Pokemon style instead of something more transformative, if that makes sense. So with no legs, I decided to lean into a more bug-like appearance. I usually associate robots with bugs, and I think it's because they have a metal or hard covering like an exoskeleton. So with that, the art is done. This is Elementon from Element and Automaton, the crack core Pokemon. Elementon can store various kinds of energy within elemental spheres. The small fissures in its central core cause it to behave oddly. But wait, what's that glowing? That's right, different forms. The art for these isn't going to be super polished, just refined sketches to demonstrate what I was thinking. Because when it changes forms, it adds on ice or dark type. There's no plasma form because I think if I ever made a mega form, it would have plasma. Frost form is supposed to look more defensive, and I tried to make it look like both an ice skater and a hockey player. It also gets its legs back in both forms, although they're made of their respective elements. I repurposed the long tentacles from earlier sketches for the dark form, and the pose was referenced from the Doom and Gloom card art. Here are their frost and dark forms. And for our last character, we've got the Watcher. This is another one where I factored in more of the character concept rather than specific story events, but the Watcher is a blind monk whose job is to observe things. She's trying to find her colleague within the Spire, who is maybe the Time Eater. I hate that guy. Unlike with the Ironclad and the Silent, I didn't start out with an animal inspiration for this one. I feel like if I went the humanoid animal route with her, I would just end up making Mean Xiao again. But if I made her less humanoid, I would lose the martial artist vibes, since most fighting Pokemon are bipedal or can stand upright. So I tried to do more of a Gardevoir or Gallade thing, where they're humanoid but still abstracted enough to still be a Pokemon. Since one of her artifacts is the Violet Lotus, I also tried to add some plant shape language, like shaping her hair to look like a bud and her arms like leaves. I'm not good at making this genre of Pokemon, and it's not really something I particularly enjoy, but I think she looks alright in the end. She kind of reminds me of Kartana, although looking at that design makes me wish I had given her less of a human face. I liked how her sash is something she fights with in-game, so I made these ends into those extra appendages that she can use to punch stuff. Her shiny is based on the Holy Water relic and the overlay she gets in Divinity stance. This is Obsir, the pure water Pokemon. Obsir is said to possess acute powers of divination and awareness. It will often enter a state of complete calm before striking. So that's it for— wait, I see a light again. Watcher also gets extra forms. My vision for these forms are that Obsir would stay psychic fighting, but get different stats with buffed defense or buffed attack. Calm form has more open eye motifs to reference scrying, and I wanted her sashes to look more like shields or those boxing mitts. Their patterning is inspired by the Spirit Shield card. I wish I had more time to cook with her Wrath form, because I feel like I just sharpened the shapes and left it at that. I did try to make her hair look looser though, since in some of the Wrath related cards it comes out of her updo. That wraps it up for this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe to see more. I had a really good time making these Pokemon, so I hope you had fun watching. Maybe I'll make a part 2 someday with the new characters, or Mega Evolutions? Okay, that's all for now, and see you next Saturday.